15 haunted celebrity mansions Hollywood tried to hide. What if Hollywood's most glamorous mansions were hiding chilling secrets? Behind gated estates lie alleged hauntings so disturbing, publicists have spent millions to silence them. Tonight, we reveal 15 celebrity homes where paranormal horror meets scandal. Think A-listers fleeing dream homes, exorcisms failing, and homes changing hands due to ghostly torment. From phantom calls to bloodstains and eerie voices caught on tape, these tales are the industry's darkest whispers. Some stars reportedly took these secrets to their graves. With non-disclosure agreements and hushed agents, the cycle continues. Welcome to Hollywood's haunted underbelly, where fame may come with a terrifying price. Number 15. The Ozzy Osbourne Mansion, where rock meets the supernatural. When Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne bought their Beverly Hills mansion in the 1980s, they thought they were getting the ultimate rock star paradise. What they discovered instead, according to Sharon's own accounts, was a supernatural nightmare that made even the Prince of Darkness himself flee in terror. The mansion, built in the 1940s, had been the site of multiple unexplained deaths over the decades, but the Osbournes didn't learn about this history until after they'd moved in and started experiencing phenomena that defied explanation. Sharon was the first to encounter the ghostly presence, as she has publicly described. She reported seeing a young woman in 1940s, clothing walking through their bedroom wall repeatedly, always carrying what appeared to be a pearl necklace. The woman would pause at Sharon's bed, stare at her with hollow eyes, then continue through the opposite wall. But the truly terrifying encounters began when filming started for the Osbournes reality show. Cameras would malfunction in specific rooms, recording equipment would shut down on its own, and crew members reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread in certain areas of the house. The breaking point came during a dinner party when multiple guests witnessed plates flying off the table and shattering against walls with no one near them. Sharon later revealed that she'd been hiding similar incidents for months, afraid that publicizing them would affect the show's success. What made the story even more disturbing was the discovery that 3 previous owners had died under mysterious circumstances. One an apparent suicide, one from unexplained causes in his sleep, and one from what police described as an accidental fall downstairs that many questioned. Number 14, Judy Garland's final home, the haunted hideaway in Chelsea. Judy Garland's last residence, a modest townhouse in London's Chelsea district, became the epicenter of supernatural activity after her tragic death from an accidental overdose in 1969. What tourists don't know is that the house has allegedly been quietly changing hands every few years because no one can bear to live there long term. The first signs of paranormal activity were reported by Garland's friend Mickey Deans, who found her body. In the weeks following her death, he described hearing her voice singing "Over the Rainbow" in the middle of the night, coming from the bathroom where she died. Subsequent owners have reported far more disturbing encounters. One family claimed to find every mirror in the house covered with condensation that formed the words "No place like home," regardless of the weather conditions outside. A music executive who owned the house in the 1980s allegedly hired a team of paranormal investigators after experiencing what he described as the most terrifying 3 months of my life. The investigators captured audio recordings of what appeared to be Garland's voice, but not singing. Instead, she seemed to be crying and calling out for her children. The most chilling incident reportedly occurred when a television producer lived there briefly in the 1990s. She claimed that every electronic device in the house would turn on at exactly 12:17 a.m., the time police estimated Garland had died. The devices would all tune to musical programs, creating a cacophony of overlapping songs throughout the house. Number 13, the Fatty Arbuckle Estate, where scandal meets supernatural terror. Roscoe Fatty, Arbuckle's former estate in the Hollywood Hills, carries the weight of both scandal and supernatural horror. After the comedian's career was destroyed by allegations of rape and murder in 1921, charges that were later dismissed, the mansion allegedly became a magnet for paranormal activity that has haunted every subsequent owner. The modern celebrity owners of the estate, who purchased it through a shell corporation to hide their identity, have reportedly experienced phenomena that their publicists work overtime to suppress. Sources claim the family has described incidents involving phantom parties, sounds of 1920s music, laughter, and clinking glasses that occur in the middle of the night. Multiple housekeepers have supposedly quit after reporting encounters with a heavy-set man in 1920s clothing who appears in mirrors and vintage photographs around the house. Some staff members have described feeling physically pushed by an invisible force, particularly near the room where Arbuckle allegedly held the party that led to Virginia Rapp's death. The mansion's current owners have invested heavily in security systems, but the technology seems to work against them. Motion sensors trigger alarms when no one is present. Security cameras capture orbs of light moving through rooms, and recording equipment equipment picks up voices speaking in 1920s slang. Perhaps most disturbing is what happened during a charity fundraiser held at the mansion. Multiple guests reported seeing a woman in a white dress collapsed in the library, but when they approached to help, she would vanish. Number 12. Lucille Ball's Hidden Horror, the dark secret of the Lucy estate. Behind the laughter and love that made Lucille Ball America's sweetheart lay a supernatural secret that, according to rumors, the Ball family has fought for decades to keep hidden. The actress's former estate in Beverly Hills allegedly harbors ghostly encounters that would have terrified even Lucy herself. After Ball's death in 1989, the mansion was quickly sold to a prominent music industry executive who planned to renovate it as his dream home. The renovation never happened. Within 6 months, the new owner had fled, leaving behind a house full of furniture and a story he was legally bound never to tell. Sources close to the family claimed the executive experienced what he described as Lucy's presence, trying to communicate with him. Not the comedic Lucy millions loved, but a desperate, anxious spirit that seemed to be warning him about something in the house. The paranormal investigator, secretly brought in to examine the property, supposedly discovered that the activity centered around Lucy's former dressing room, which had been converted into a study. EMF readings spiked dramatically in this area, and sensitive equipment picked up what sounded like a woman's voice repeating the same phrase, "Don't let them find it." The most documented incident allegedly occurred when the owner's teenage daughter brought friends to the house for a party. Multiple witnesses reported seeing Lucy appear in the living room, not as the elderly woman she'd been at death, but as young Lucy from the height of her career. She gestured frantically toward a specific wall before vanishing. Investigation of that wall supposedly revealed a hidden compartment containing documents that reportedly exposed secrets about Lucy's career and personal life that could have damaged her legacy. The family quickly retrieved these materials, and the paranormal activity immediately ceased. Number 11. The Marilyn Monroe Penthouse: Beauty, Death, and Eternal Unrest. Marilyn Monroe's final residence wasn't her Brentwood house where she died, but a secret penthouse she allegedly maintained in Manhattan's Upper East Side. This hidden retreat has become the center of supernatural phenomena so intense that it's changed hands 6 times in the past decade, with each owner signing increasingly strict non-disclosure agreements. The penthouse was supposedly purchased by Monroe under an assumed name just months before her death, intending it as a refuge where she could escape Hollywood's pressures. After her death, it was quietly sold to a series of entertainment industry figures who discovered they had bought more than just prime Manhattan real estate. The first documented paranormal activity allegedly occurred in the 1970s when a film studio executive and his wife moved in. They reported finding Monroe's signature red lipstick writing on their bathroom mirror. Not words, but her name signed in the same style she used for autographs. More disturbing were reports of Monroe's voice coming through the building's intercom system at all hours. Residents of other apartments complained to building management about hearing a woman crying and calling out, "Please help me," through the vents, but investigations found no source for the sounds. One owner, a television producer, reportedly documented his experiences before being forced to stop by legal threats. He described Monroe appearing in her famous white dress from The 7-Year Itch, standing by the penthouse's large windows and looking out over the city with an expression of profound sadness. The pattern of rapid ownership changes became even more pronounced after a tech mogul bought the property in 2018. Within 3 months, he had moved out, telling friends privately that he'd experienced impossible things that made him question his sanity. Building employees, speaking anonymously, describe elevators that stop at Monroe's floor when no one has pressed the button, and the persistent scent of her signature perfume, Chanel No. 5, wafting through hallways despite no one wearing it. Most chilling is the reported connection between the penthouse activity and Monroe's conspiracy theories. Several owners have claimed that when the paranormal activity reaches its peak, they experience overwhelming urges to investigate certain aspects of Monroe's death, as if her spirit is trying to communicate something important about what really happened to her. The current owner, whose identity is heavily protected by legal agreements, has reportedly hired a team of paranormal specialists who work exclusively with high-profile clients. Despite their efforts, the activity continues, and real estate insiders whisper that the property will soon be on the market once again. Number 10. Elvis Presley's Secret California Retreat, the King's Hidden Haunting. While Graceland gets all the attention for Elvis-related paranormal activity, the King's secret retreat in the Hollywood Hills allegedly harbors supernatural phenomena that would shock even his most devoted fans. This property, purchased under a shell corporation and never publicly linked to Elvis, became his refuge during his most troubled periods. and apparently, his spirit never left. The mansion was discovered by Elvis in 1973 when he was struggling with his failing marriage and increasing drug dependency. He reportedly told only his closest confidants about the property, using it as a place to decompress away from the public eye. After his death, the property quietly passed through a series of entertainment industry hands, each owner experiencing phenomena that defied explanation. The first celebrity to purchase the property, a rock star who achieved fame in the 1980s, described hearing Elvis's voice singing late at night. Not recordings, but live vocals that seemed to come from the air itself, often songs that Elvis had never officially recorded. More unsettling were the reports of Elvis's ghost appearing to visitors who didn't know about his connection to the house. A director who attended a party there in the 1990s described seeing a man in a white jumpsuit standing at the top of the stairs. When he asked his host about the unusual guest, he was told no one matching that description was at the party. The mansion's current owner, a multiple Grammy winner, has allegedly experienced phenomena that suggest Elvis's spirit is aware of current events. Studio equipment in the house's converted recording space reportedly turns on by itself, and monitoring equipment has captured recordings of Elvis's voice, commenting on modern music and current events in his distinctive speaking style. What makes this haunting particularly credible is the involvement of Elvis's former employees. Several of his surviving inner circle have privately confirmed experiencing Elvis's presence at the property, describing it as feeling more like him than Graceland does. The property includes a replica of Elvis's jungle room, and it's in this space that the most intense paranormal activity reportedly occurs. Multiple witnesses have claimed to see Elvis playing piano and singing, appearing solid and real until observers try to approach, at which point he fades away. Recent developments include reports of Elvis's spirit seemingly trying to warn the current owner about health issues, appearing to point at specific parts of the owner's body before vanishing. Given Elvis's own struggles with health and medication, many interpret this as the king trying to prevent others from following his tragic path. Number 9. The Sharon Tate House, where horror never ended. While the Cielo Drive house where Sharon Tate was murdered was demolished, few know about her previous residence in Benedict Canyon, where she lived with Roman Polanski before moving to the fatal address. This earlier home has allegedly become a nexus of paranormal activity that the Tate family and Polanski's representatives have fought to keep secret. Tate lived in the Benedict Canyon property for barely a year, but those close to her reported that she experienced disturbing supernatural encounters that seemed to foreshadow her tragic fate. She confided to friends about recurring nightmares and waking visions of intruders in the house, experiences that take on horrifying significance in hindsight. After Tate's murder, the Benedict Canyon house was quickly sold. The new owners, a prominent Hollywood couple, began experiencing phenomena that seemed directly connected to Tate's spirit. They reported seeing a young woman with blonde hair wandering through the house, particularly near the bedroom where Tate had slept. The most chilling incidents involved mirrors in the house showing reflections that didn't match reality. Guests would see Tate's image appear beside their own reflection, often looking frightened and trying to mouth warnings that no one could hear. What elevated this from typical ghost story to Hollywood cover-up was the involvement of the Tate family. Sharon's sister, Deborah Tate, reportedly visited the house once and left immediately, telling the owners she would never set foot in a place where Sharon was still trapped. Multiple paranormal investigations have allegedly been conducted at the property, all under strict confidentiality agreements. Investigators claim to have documented evidence of an intelligent haunting, with Tate's spirit appearing to respond to questions about her life and death. The house passed through several entertainment industry hands, with each owner reporting similar phenomena. A music producer who lived there in the 1990s claimed that recording equipment in his home studio would malfunction specifically when playing or recording beautiful melodies, as if Tate's spirit was drawn to beauty and artistry. Some believe that the current owners have reported that the paranormal activity seems to intensify around the anniversary of Tate's death each August. Neighbors have seen lights moving through the house when it's supposed to be empty, and some report seeing a young woman in 1960s clothing standing in the windows. What makes this haunting particularly tragic is that witnesses describe Tate's spirit as seeming confused and lost, as if she doesn't understand why she can't move on. Spiritual advisors, who have allegedly worked on the case, suggest that the traumatic nature of her death may have created a supernatural tie to places where she experienced happiness. Number 8. The John Belushi Connection. Comedy turned to horror. John Belushi's former residence in the Hollywood Hills, where he lived during his Saturday Night Live peak, allegedly harbors supernatural activity that would shock fans who remember him only for his comedy. After Belushi's death from a drug overdose in 1982, the house became a magnet for paranormal phenomena that successive owners have desperately tried to hide. The mansion, purchased by Belushi at the height of his fame, was intended as his sanctuary from the pressures of stardom. Instead, it supposedly became the site of increasingly erratic behavior and paranormal experiences that may have contributed to his tragic downward spiral. Dan Aykroyd, who visited frequently during the Blues Brothers era, later privately confided to friends about weird vibes in the house. He described feeling watched and hearing laughter coming from empty rooms, often followed by an overwhelming sense of sadness. After Belushi's death, the property was sold to a television executive who allegedly experienced phenomena that forced him to seek help from paranormal specialists. He reported hearing Belushi's distinctive voice and laughter throughout the house, but not the joyful sounds fans would expect. Instead, they seemed desperate and pleading. The most documented incident reportedly occurred during a party hosted by the executive's wife. Multiple guests witnessed what appeared to be Belushi materialize in the living room, performing his famous samurai chef routine, but in slow motion and with an expression of profound sorrow. When guests tried to interact with the apparition, it dissolved into mist. Subsequent owners have reported similar encounters, often describing Belushi's spirit as appearing to reenact moments from his career, but with an overlay of awareness about his fate. One owner, a comedy writer, claimed that Belushi's ghost tried to warn him about drug use by appearing whenever illegal substances were present in the house. The paranormal activity allegedly escalated when a streaming service executive moved into the property in recent years. Security cameras captured footage of doors opening and closing on their own, objects moving without explanation, and most notably, what appears to be Belushi's figure moving through rooms. What makes this haunting particularly poignant is that witnesses describe Belushi's spirit as seeming to want to entertain, but being unable to recapture the joy that made him famous. Instead, his ghostly performances carry an undercurrent of warning, as if he's trying to prevent others from following his destructive path. Legend has it that the current owner has consulted with spiritual mediums who claim Belushi's spirit is earthbound because of guilt over wasted opportunities and the pain he caused loved ones. Despite multiple attempts at spiritual intervention, including having Saturday Night Live cast members visit to provide closure, the activity continues. Number 7. The Poltergeist House, where Hollywood's horror became reality. Prominent actress's Malibu mansion allegedly became the real-life inspiration for supernatural horror after she experienced poltergeist activity so intense that it made the fictional movie Poltergeist seem tame by comparison. The incidents were supposedly so well documented that they became Hollywood legend, though the actress's identity remains protected by non-disclosure agreements. The mansion, built on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, seemed like the perfect retreat when purchased in the early 1980s. However, within weeks of moving in, the actress and her family began experiencing phenomena that defied rational explanation. It reportedly started with typical poltergeist activity, objects moving on their own, unexplained sounds, and electrical disturbances. But the activity quickly escalated to include furniture being violently thrown across rooms with no one present, and family members being physically touched by invisible forces. The actress, known for her skeptical nature, initially blamed the incidents on stress and imagination. This changed when her young daughter began speaking to an invisible friend who knew details about the family that no child could know and who accurately predicted events before they happened. The breaking point allegedly came during a dinner party when guests witnessed the dining room table rise several inches off the ground and hover there for nearly 30 seconds before crashing down. China and glassware flew across the room as if thrown by an angry child, and several guests reported feeling invisible hands grabbing and pushing them. Paranormal investigators brought in to study the phenomena supposedly documented some of the most compelling evidence of poltergeist activity ever recorded. Video footage showed objects moving with no apparent cause, audio recordings captured disembodied voices, and electromagnetic readings spiked dramatically in areas where incidents occurred. What made the situation even more disturbing was the discovery that the mansion had been built on a site with a dark history. Research revealed that a family had lived there in the 1920s, losing 3 children to illness over a single winter. The actress and her family eventually fled the mansion, selling it at a significant loss and signing agreements never to discuss their experiences publicly. However, crew members from the paranormal investigation and household staff have provided details about the extent of the activity. Subsequent owners have not remained in the property for long periods, and real estate records show it has been sold multiple times over the past 4 decades. Word is that the mansion currently sits empty, officially listed as undergoing renovation, but actually abandoned due to ongoing paranormal activity. Number 6. The Corey Haim Nightmare, Teen Idol's Tormented Spirit. Corey Haim's North Hollywood apartment, where he spent his final troubled years, has allegedly become a site of supernatural activity so intense that it's been quietly exorcised 3 times by different spiritual practitioners. The apartment complex's management company has worked overtime to suppress stories about the haunting, fearing it would affect property values and their reputation. Haim, who struggled with addiction and financial problems after his teenage heartthrob days, lived in relative obscurity in the modest apartment complex during his final years. Neighbors reported hearing arguments and erratic behavior coming from his unit, but what they experienced after his death in 2010 was far more disturbing. The first tenant to move into Haim's former apartment reportedly lasted less than a month. They described constant knocking on walls, electronics turning on and off at random, and an overwhelming sense of anxiety that made sleep impossible. Most unsettling was the sound of someone crying and pleading that seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. A child actor who knew Haim during their teenage years visited the complex to pay respects and reported seeing Haim's figure standing in the apartment's window, looking exactly as he had at the height of his fame. The paranormal activity allegedly extended beyond Haim's apartment to affect the entire complex. Residents reported elevators stopping at Haim's floor without being called, hallway lights flickering when no electrical problems could be found, and a persistent smell of teen-oriented cologne that would appear and disappear without explanation. What made the haunting particularly tragic is that witnesses describe Haim's spirit as appearing young and healthy, as if his ghost was stuck in his teenage heartthrob period. Legend says the management has spent thousands trying to cleanse the property, bringing in spiritual advisors from different religious traditions. While these efforts have reduced the activity, they reportedly haven't eliminated it entirely. Current residents speak anonymously about continuing disturbances, particularly around anniversaries of significant events in Haim's life. Number 5. The Whitney Houston Estate, where the voice still echoes. Whitney Houston's former estate in Mendham, New Jersey, where she lived during some of her most troubled years, has allegedly experienced supernatural phenomena that suggest her powerful voice continues to resonate even after death. The mansion, sold quickly after her death, has become a source of both beautiful and terrifying encounters for its subsequent occupants. Houston lived in the mansion during her marriage to Bobby Brown and through her struggles with addiction. The house witnessed both her greatest triumphs and deepest despairs, and many believe this emotional intensity has left a supernatural imprint on the property. The estate's new owners, a pharmaceutical executive and his family, initially dismissed stories about the property's paranormal reputation. This changed within their first month of residence when they began hearing Houston's voice singing throughout the house. Not recordings, but live vocal performances that seemed to come from the air itself. The phenomena reportedly intensified when the family's teenage daughter, an aspiring singer, moved into the room that had been Houston's recording studio. She claimed that Houston's spirit would appear during her practice sessions, initially seeming to offer guidance and encouragement through gestures and expressions. However, the encounters allegedly became more disturbing when the daughter began experiencing what she described as Houston's spirit trying to possess her during performances. She would find herself singing in Houston's style and range, hitting notes she'd never been able to reach before, but feeling like someone else was controlling her voice. The most well-documented incident supposedly occurred during a charity fundraiser at the estate. Over 50 guests witnessed the house's sound system beginning to play Houston's music without any input from the hosts. More remarkably, Houston's voice seemed to join in live with her own recordings, creating harmonies that had never existed before. Paranormal investigators brought in to study the phenomena supposedly discovered that electromagnetic activity spiked dramatically in areas where Houston had spent the most time. They recorded numerous EVP sessions where Houston's spirit appeared to respond to questions about her music and her regrets about her life choices. Number 4. The Michael Jackson Hideaway, Neverland's Secret Shadow. While Neverland Ranch gets all the attention, Michael Jackson reportedly maintained a secret retreat in the Hollywood Hills that has become the center of supernatural activity far more intense than anything reported at his famous estate. This hidden property, purchased under layers of corporate secrecy, served as Jackson's true sanctuary and apparently remains his spiritual refuge. The modern mansion was extensively renovated by Jackson to include recording studios, gaming areas, and private performance spaces where he could create without outside interference. After his death, the property passed quietly to a trust, but not before several people documented extraordinary paranormal experiences. Staff members who worked at the property during Jackson's lifetime report that supernatural activity began even before his death. They described seeing Jackson's reflection in mirrors when he wasn't present, hearing his unmistakable voice, practicing vocals in empty rooms, and experiencing the sensation of being watched by invisible eyes. After Jackson's death, these phenomena allegedly intensified dramatically. The property's security systems began capturing footage of a figure moving through the house that matched Jackson's distinctive gait and mannerisms. A music executive who briefly considered purchasing the property reported experiencing what he could only describe as a private concert. While alone in the main studio, he heard Jackson's voice performing songs that had never been released, complete with instrumental accompaniment that had no visible source. The most compelling evidence comes from the property's sophisticated recording equipment, which has allegedly captured hours of what appears to be Jackson's voice. Audio analysis confirms the vocal patterns match Jackson's known recordings, but the content includes commentary on events that occurred after his death. Children who have visited the property report seeing the nice man who dances in various rooms, describing him as looking exactly like Jackson during his Thriller era. These encounters are reportedly positive, with the children saying the figure seems happy to see them and sometimes appears to be teaching them dance moves. Paranormal investigators working under strict confidentiality agreements have supposedly documented phenomena, including instruments playing themselves in Jackson's private studio, mirrors reflecting images of Jackson that don't correspond to anyone present, and electromagnetic readings that spike in rhythm with Jackson's famous songs. The current caretakers of the property have reportedly learned to coexist with Jackson's spirit, treating the phenomena as manifestations of his continuing creative energy rather than frightening supernatural events. They describe feeling a sense of joy and music permeating the property, as if Jackson's spirit has found peace in this hidden refuge. Number 3. The River Phoenix Tragedy, Where Innocence Haunts. River Phoenix's former house in West Hollywood, where he lived during his final months, has allegedly become a site of supernatural activity that suggests his innocent spirit remains earthbound and confused about his tragic fate. The property has changed hands multiple times, with each owner experiencing phenomena that reflect Phoenix's youth and the circumstances of his death. Phoenix, known for his environmental activism and clean living, ironically struggled with hidden addictions that contradicted his public image. The house witnessed his internal battle between his idealistic nature and the pressures of Hollywood, a conflict that many believe continues in death. The first owners after Phoenix's death, a director and his writer-wife, reported seeing a young man matching Phoenix's appearance sitting in the garden, tending to plants and looking peaceful. When they approached these apparitions, they would dissolve like morning mist, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of sadness. More disturbing were the encounters that seemed to reflect Phoenix's final night at the Viper Room. Several visitors to the house have reported seeing Phoenix's spirit in distress, appearing to beg for help or looking confused and lost. These manifestations typically occur late at night and are accompanied by dramatic drops in temperature. A young actor who lived in the house briefly described experiencing what felt like Phoenix's spirit trying to warn him about the dangers of Hollywood's party scene. During social gatherings at the house, electronics would malfunction whenever drugs or alcohol were present, and guests reported feeling an oppressive atmosphere that made celebration impossible. The supernatural activity allegedly became so intense that one owner hired a spiritual medium who claimed to communicate directly with Phoenix's spirit. According to the medium, Phoenix was trapped between worlds because his death contradicted everything he believed about life and spirituality, leaving him unable to accept what had happened. Environmental activists who have visited the property report feeling Phoenix's continuing passion for ecological causes. Plants in the house reportedly grow unusually well despite minimal care, and the property has become a sanctuary for wildlife that seems unnaturally comfortable around human presence. Most poignantly, several witnesses have described seeing Phoenix's spirit in the form he held in Stand By Me, an innocent child rather than the young man he was at death. These encounters typically occur in the house's library, where he appears to be reading books about environmental issues and spiritual philosophy. philosophy. Legend has it that the current owners, an environmentalist couple, have embraced Phoenix's presence rather than trying to banish it. They've converted the house into an informal sanctuary for environmental education, and the paranormal activity has reportedly become more peaceful and inspiring rather than disturbing. Number 2. The notorious B.I.G. Studio, where hip-hop legends never leave. The private recording studio in Los Angeles, where the notorious B.I.G. spent his final weeks working on music, has allegedly become a supernatural hotspot that the hip-hop community whispers about but rarely discusses publicly. The studio, still operating under a different name, houses phenomena that suggest Biggie's spirit continues to create music from beyond. Christopher Wallace was working on what would become his posthumous album Life After Death in this studio when he was murdered in 1997. Engineers and artists who worked with him during those final sessions describe an atmosphere of creativity mixed with underlying tension, as if Biggie sensed his time was limited. After his death, the studio began experiencing supernatural activity that started subtly but grew more pronounced over time. Sound engineers reported finding new recordings on equipment that had been powered down overnight, featuring what sounded like Biggie's voice laying down verses over instrumentals that no one could identify. Multiple artists who have recorded in the studio since describe feeling Biggie's presence during their sessions. Some report inspiration striking them suddenly while in the booth, finding themselves dropping lyrics with complexity and flow that surpassed their usual abilities. Others describe feeling watched and judged by an invisible presence that seems to evaluate their musical authenticity. The most well-documented incidents allegedly involve equipment behaving in ways that support rather than hinder the creative process. Mixing boards slide to optimal settings on their own, and recording equipment begins running at precisely the right moments to capture spontaneous musical ideas. Several Grammy-winning tracks have reportedly been recorded in sessions where this supernatural assistance was experienced. P. Diddy, who was close to Biggie and has privately acknowledged the paranormal activity, reportedly considers the studio blessed by his friend's continuing presence. Word is that he visits occasionally to commune with Biggie's spirit, believing it helps him stay true to their shared vision for hip-hop. Audio engineers have supposedly accumulated hours of unexplained recordings from the studio's equipment, featuring what appears to be Biggie's voice commenting on current hip-hop trends and offering advice to younger artists. These recordings are closely guarded by the studio's owners, who fear they could be misinterpreted or exploited. Recent activity allegedly includes reports of Biggie's spirit appearing to young artists in the studio, offering guidance about staying authentic in an increasingly commercialized industry. Witnesses describe these encounters as inspiring rather than frightening, suggesting that Biggie's spirit serves as a guardian of true hip-hop artistry. Legend says the studio has become an unofficial pilgrimage site for serious hip-hop artists who believe that recording there connects them to the genre's golden age. While the owners maintain strict confidentiality about the paranormal activity, the studio's reputation for producing exceptional music has only grown since Biggie's death. Number 1. The Marilyn Monroe Murder House, Hollywood's most terrifying secret. Topping our countdown is what many consider Hollywood's most chilling supernatural cover-up: the Brentwood home where Marilyn Monroe died in 1962. Though the modest house has been demolished and rebuilt twice, reports claim Monroe's spirit continues to haunt the site, reenacting her final night and attempting to communicate the truth about her death. Early owners described eerie cries, vanishing pill bottles, and repeated ghostly manifestations. Psychics allege Monroe insists she didn't die by suicide and wants to reveal what truly happened. Despite the home's demolition in the 1970s, her spirit reportedly lingered, frightening construction workers and neighbors. A new house built in the 1980s saw heightened activity, with Monroe appearing distraught and sometimes angry, especially during a dinner party in the 1990s, where she allegedly pointed at guests linked to her past. Paranormal teams using EMF detectors claim to have recorded Monroe's spirit spelling out names and dates, contradicting the official narrative. The home was torn down again in 2017, officially for renovation, though insiders say the haunting made it unlivable. Today's owners remain anonymous, shielded by legal protections, and have employed ghost hunters, historians, and private investigators. Their efforts, however, are reportedly met with legal and external pressure, hinting that powerful figures may want Monroe's secrets kept hidden. Despite the secrecy, sightings continue. Witnesses say Monroe's spirit appears confused, desperate, and determined, seemingly anchored to the site by a truth she's still trying to tell. The price of supernatural celebrity real estate. What makes these haunted celebrity mansions truly shocking isn't just the supernatural activity, it's hurts the devastating financial losses. These properties consistently sell below market value and change hands far more frequently than comparable luxury real estate. Some have been sold multiple times within just a few years, a pattern virtually unheard of in premium Hollywood locations. Real estate agents working these properties often require special clauses and higher commissions due to the unique challenges involved. Property management companies have reportedly spent fortunes on everything from spiritual cleansings to complete renovations, all in desperate attempts to make these mansions livable. The most telling sign? Many of these properties sit empty for months or years between owners, costing their wealthy owners hundreds of thousands in maintenance and taxes while generating no rental income. In Hollywood, where real estate is everything, that's the most frightening phenomenon of all. From Marilyn Monroe's murder house to Elvis's secret retreat, these haunted celebrity mansions prove that fame doesn't end with death, and neither do the secrets that Hollywood will do anything to protect. The next time you drive through Hollywood's elite neighborhoods, remember that behind those beautiful gates may lurk supernatural residents that even money can't evict. Which of these haunted celebrity mansions shocked you the most? Do you think these spirits are trying to reveal the truth about their deaths? Have you ever experienced anything supernatural? Let us know in the comments, but be careful what you say. In Hollywood, some secrets are worth more than real estate. If you want to hear more about Hollywood's buried secrets, make sure to like this video and subscribe. And remember, in a town built on illusion, sometimes the most real things are the ones that can't be seen. Until next time, sleep tight, but maybe avoid house hunting in the Hollywood Hills.